Please make sure to subscribe our channel to show us your support and press the bell icon to get notified about our future videos. You may pause the video at times to read the questions or the answers at your own pace. To the questions. Question 1. A company is migrating applications to AWS. The applications are deployed in different accounts. The company manages the accounts centrally by using AWS organizations. The company's security team needs a single sign-on solution across all the company's accounts. The company must continue managing the users and groups in its on-premises self-managed Microsoft Active Directory. Which solution will meet these requirements? The correct option is B. Enable AWS single sign-on from the AWS SSO console. Create a two-way forest trust to connect the company's self-managed Microsoft Active Directory with AWS SSO by using AWS Directory Service for Microsoft Active Directory. In this question, there is requirement of trust from two ways, from on-prem domain to AWS domain. They both will trust each other. One-way trust. If domain A is trusting domain B, users from domain B can access resources of domain A but not vice versa. So for A, it's outgoing trust, and for B, it is incoming trust. AWS applications need to be able to look up objects from the on-premises domain in order for them to function. This tells you that authentication needs to flow both ways. Question 2. A company has an Amazon S3 bucket that contains critical data. The company must protect the data from accidental deletion. Which combination of steps should a solution architect take to meet these requirements? Choose 2. Our options are A. Enable versioning on the S3 bucket. B. Enable MFA delete on the S3 bucket. C. Create a bucket policy on the S3 bucket. D. Enable default encryption on the S3 bucket. Or E. Create a lifecycle policy for the objects in the S3 bucket. The correct options are A and B. Enable versioning on the S3 bucket and enable MFA delete on the S3 bucket. To prevent or mitigate future accidental deletions, consider the following features. Enable versioning to keep historical versions of an object. Enable cross-region replication of objects. Enable MFA delete to require multi-factor authentication when deleting an object version. Question 3. A company has an application that ingests incoming messages. Dozens of other applications and microservices then quickly consume these messages. The number of messages varies drastically and sometimes increases suddenly to 100,000 each second. The company wants to decouple the solution and increase scalability. Which solution meets these requirements? The correct option is D. Publish the messages to an Amazon Simple Notification Service topic with multiple Amazon Simple Queue service subscriptions. Configure the consumer applications to process the messages from the queues. Decoupling equals SQS in most cases, and they did mention SNS into multiple SQS, so with multiple SQS, you can handle more than 100k requests. Question 4. A company has data ingestion workflow that consists of the following: an Amazon Simple Notification Service topic for notifications about new data deliveries, an AWS Lambda function to process the data and record metadata. The company observes that the ingestion workflow fails occasionally because of network connectivity issues. When such a failure occurs, the Lambda function does not ingest the corresponding data unless the company manually reruns the job. Which combination of actions should a solution architect take to ensure that the Lambda function ingests all data in the future? Choose 2. Our options are A. Deploy the Lambda function in multiple availability zones. B. Create an Amazon Simple Queue service queue and subscribe it to the SNS topic. C. Increase the CPU and memory that are allocated to the Lambda function. D. Increase provisioned throughput for the Lambda function. Or E. Modify the Lambda function to read from an Amazon Simple Queue service queue. The correct options are B and E, that is, create an Amazon simple queue service queue and subscribe it to the SNS topic. Modify the Lambda function to read from an Amazon SQS queue. B and E, so that the Lambda function reads the SQS queue and nothing gets lost. A, C, D options are out since Lambda is fully managed service which provides high availability and scalability by its own. Answers are B and E. Question 5. A company performs monthly maintenance on its AWS infrastructure. During these maintenance activities, the company needs to rotate the credentials for its Amazon RDS for MySQL databases across multiple AWS regions. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead? The correct option among all these is A. Store the credentials as secrets in AWS Secrets Manager. Use multi-region secret replication for the required regions. Configure Secrets Manager to rotate the secrets on a schedule. AWS Secrets Manager is meant for storing secrets. Its capability to force rotation of secrets every X days, automate generation of secrets on rotation, and integration with Amazon RDS. Question 6. A company is developing an application that provides order shipping statistics for retrieval by a REST API. The company wants to extract the shipping statistics, organize the data into an easy-to-read HTML format, and send the report to several email addresses at the same time every morning. Which combination of steps should a solution architect take to meet these requirements? Choose 2. The correct options are B and D, that is, use Amazon simple email service to format the data and to send the report by email. Create an Amazon event bridge, scheduled event that invokes an AWS Lambda function to query the application's API for the data. You can use SCS to format the report in HTML. Question 7. A company hosts a data lake on AWS. The data lake consists of data in Amazon S3 and Amazon RDS for PostgreSQL. The company needs a reporting solution that provides data visualization and includes all the data resources within the data lake. Only the company's management team should have full access to all the visualizations. The rest of the company should have only limited access. Which solution will meet these requirements? The correct option is B. Create an analysis in Amazon QuickSight. Connect all the data sources and create new datasets. Publish dashboards to visualize the data. Share the dashboards with the appropriate users and groups. QuickSight gives decision makers the opportunity to explore and interpret information in an interactive visual environment. QuickSight uses ML to generate accurate responses to natural language questions about data. AWS Glue is a serverless data integration service that makes data preparation simpler, faster, and cheaper. So, AWS Glue and Crawler is out, leaving the two options A and B. B is the right answer because after you publish a dashboard, you can share it with the other users or groups in your QuickSight account. Question 8. A company that hosts its web application on AWS wants to ensure all Amazon EC2 instances, Amazon RDS DB instances, and Amazon Redshift clusters are configured with tags. The company wants to minimize the effort of configuring and operating this check. What should a solutions architect do to accomplish this? Our options are A. Use AWS config rules to define and detect resources that are not properly tagged. B. Use Cost Explorer to display resources that are not properly tagged. Tag those resources manually. C. Write API calls to check all resources for proper tag allocation. Periodically run the code on an EC2 instance. Or D. Write API calls to check all resources for proper tag allocation. Schedule an AWS Lambda function through Amazon CloudWatch to periodically run the code. Question 9. A development team runs monthly resource-intensive tests on its general-purpose Amazon RDS for MySQL DB instance with performance insights enabled. The testing lasts for 48 hours once a month and is the only process that uses the database. The team wants to reduce the cost of running the test without reducing the compute and memory attributes of the DB instance. Which solution meets these requirements most cost effectively? Our options are A. Stop the DB instance when tests are completed. Restart the DB instance when required. B. Use an auto-scaling policy with the DB instance to automatically scale when tests are completed. C. Create a snapshot when tests are completed. Terminate the DB instance and restore the snapshot when required. Or D. Modify the DB instance to a low capacity instance when tests are completed. Modify the DB instance again when required. The correct answer is C. Create a snapshot when tests are completed. Terminate the DB instance and restore the snapshot when required. Not A. By stopping the DB, although you are not paying for DB hours, you are still paying for provisioned IOPs. The storage for stopped DB is more than snapshot of underlying EBS volume and automated backups. Not D. It is possible but not most cost effective. No need to run the RDS when not needed. Question 10. A company has an application that runs on Amazon EC2 instances and uses an Amazon Aurora database. The EC2 instances connect to the database by using usernames and passwords that are stored locally in a file. The company wants to minimize the operational overhead of credential management. What should a solution architect do to accomplish this goal? The correct answer is A. Use AWS Secrets Manager. Turn on automatic rotation. AWS Secrets Manager is a secrets management service that helps you protect access to your applications, services, and IT resources. This service enables you to rotate, manage, and retrieve database credentials, API keys, and other secrets throughout their lifecycle. Question 11. A company is storing backup files by using Amazon S3 standard storage. The files are accessed frequently for 1 month. However, the files are not accessed after 1 month. The company must keep the files indefinitely. Which storage solution will meet these requirements most cost effectively? Our options are A. Configure S3 intelligent tiering to automatically migrate objects. B. Create an S3 lifecycle configuration to transition objects from S3 standard to S3 Glacier Deep Archive after 1 month. C. Create an S3 lifecycle configuration to transition objects from S3 standard to S3 standard infrequent access after 1 month. Or D. Create an S3 lifecycle configuration to transition objects from S3 standard to S3 one zone infrequent access after 1 month. The correct option is B. Create an S3 lifecycle configuration to transition objects from S3 standard to S3 Glacier Deep Archive after 1 month. The storage solution that will meet these requirements most cost effectively is B. Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive is a secure, durable, and extremely low cost Amazon S3 storage class for long-term retention of data that is rarely accessed and for which retrieval times of several hours are acceptable. It is the lowest cost storage option in Amazon S3, making it a cost-effective choice for storing backup files that are not accessed after 1 month. You can use an S3 lifecycle configuration to automatically transition objects from S3 standard to S3 Glacier Deep Archive after 1 month. This will minimize the storage cost for the backup files that are not accessed frequently. Question 12. A company needs guaranteed Amazon EC2 capacity in 3 specific availability zones in a specific AWS region for an upcoming event that will last 1 week. What should the company do to guarantee the EC2 capacity? Our options are A. Purchase reserved instances that specify the region needed. B. Create an on-demand capacity reservation that specifies the region needed. C. Purchase reserved instances that specify the region and 3 availability zones needed. Or D. Create an on-demand capacity reservation that specifies the region and 3 availability zones needed. The correct option is D. Create an on-demand capacity reservation that specifies the region and 3 availability zones needed. Reserved instances are for long term, so on-demand will be the right choice. Question 13. A company stores call transcript files on a monthly basis. Users access the files randomly within 1 year of the call, but users access the files infrequently after 1 year. The company wants to optimize its solution by giving users the ability to query and retrieve files that are less than 1 year old as quickly as possible. A delay in retrieving older files is acceptable. Which solution will meet these requirements most cost effectively? The correct option is B. Store individual files in Amazon S3 intelligent tiering. Use S3 lifecycle policies to move the files to S3 Glacier flexible retrieval after 1 year. Query and retrieve the files that are in Amazon S3 by using Amazon Athena. Query and retrieve the files that are in S3 Glacier by using S3 Glacier Select. Users access the file randomly, so S3 intelligent tiering is the ideal storage class for data with unknown, changing or unpredictable access patterns, independent of object size or retention period. You can use S3 intelligent tiering as the default storage class for virtually any workload, especially data lakes, data analytics, new applications, and user-generated content. Question 14. A company wants to migrate its on-premises application to AWS. The application produces output files that vary in size from tens of gigabytes to hundreds of terabytes. The application data must be stored in a standard file system structure. The company wants a solution that scales automatically, is highly available, and requires minimum operational overhead. Which solution will meet these requirements? The correct option is C. Migrate the application to Amazon EC2 instances in a multi-AZ auto-scaling group. Use Amazon Elastic File System for storage. For a standard file system, we use EFS rather than S3. Question 15. A company runs multiple Windows workloads on AWS. The company's employees use Windows file shares that are hosted on two Amazon EC2 instances. The file shares synchronize data between themselves and maintain duplicate copies. The company wants a highly available and durable storage solution that preserves how users currently access the files. What should a solution architect do to meet these requirements? Our options are A. Migrate all data to Amazon S3. Set up IAM authentication for users to access files. B. Set up an Amazon S3 file gateway. Mount the S3 file gateway on the existing EC2 instances. C. Extend the file share environment to Amazon FSx for Windows file server with a multi-AZ configuration. Migrate all data to FSx for Windows file server. Or D. Extend the file share environment to Amazon Elastic File System with a multi-AZ configuration. Migrate all data to Amazon EFS. Among all these options, the correct answer is C. Question 16. A company is running a popular social media website. The website gives users the ability to upload images to share with other users. The company wants to make sure that the images do not contain inappropriate content. The company needs a solution that minimizes development effort. What should a solution architect do to meet these requirements? Our options are A. Use Amazon Comprehend to detect inappropriate content. Use human review for low confidence predictions. B. Use Amazon Recognition to detect inappropriate content. Use human review for low confidence predictions. C. Use Amazon SageMaker to detect inappropriate content. Use ground truth to label low confidence predictions. Or D. Use AWS Fargate to deploy a custom machine learning model to detect inappropriate content. Use ground truth to label low confidence predictions. The correct option among all of these is B. Question 17. A company hosts more than 300 global websites and applications. The company requires a platform to analyze more than 30 TB of clickstream data each day. What should a solution architect do to transmit and process the clickstream data? The correct option is D. Collect the data from Amazon Kinesis data streams. Use Amazon Kinesis data firehouse to transmit the data to an Amazon S3 data lake. Load the data in Amazon Redshift for analysis. Option D is the most appropriate solution for transmitting and processing the clickstream data in this scenario. Amazon Kinesis data streams is a highly scalable and durable service that enables real-time processing of streaming data at a high volume and high rate. You can use Kinesis data streams to collect and process the clickstream data in real time. Amazon Kinesis Data Firehouse is a fully managed service that loads streaming data into data stores and analytics tools. You can use Kinesis Data Firehouse to transmit the data from Kinesis data streams to an Amazon S3 data lake. Once the data is in the data lake, you can use Amazon Redshift to load the data and perform analysis on it. Amazon Redshift is a fully managed petabyte scale data warehouse service that allows you to quickly and efficiently analyze data using SQL and your existing business intelligence tools. Question 18. A company is running an SMB file server in its data center. The file server stores large files that are accessed frequently for the first few days after the files are created. After 7 days, the files are rarely accessed. The total data size is increasing and is close to the company's total storage capacity. A solution architect must increase the company's available storage space without losing low latency access to the most recently accessed files. The solutions architect must also provide file lifecycle management to avoid future storage issues. Which solution will meet these requirements? The correct option is B. Create an Amazon S3 file gateway to extend the company's storage space. Create an S3 lifecycle policy to transition the data to S3 Glacier Deep Archive after 7 days. Amazon S3 file gateway supports either SMB or NFS protocol. I go with B with this one. Volume gateway should support SMB, and with cache volume, you can cache most recently accessed files locally for minimum latency. Question 19. A company has a website hosted on AWS. The website is behind an application load balancer that is configured to handle HTTP and HTTPS separately. The company wants to forward all requests to the website so that requests will use HTTPS. What should a solution architect do to meet this requirement? Our options are A. Upgrade the ALB's network ACL to accept only HTTPS traffic. B. Create a rule that replaces the HTTP in the URL with HTTPS. C. Create a listener rule on the ALB to redirect HTTP traffic to HTTPS. Or D. Replace the ALB with a network load balancer configured to use server name indication. The correct option here is C. Create a listener rule on the ALB to redirect HTTP traffic to HTTPS. To meet the requirements of forwarding all requests to the website so that the request will use HTTPS, a solution architect can create a listener rule on the ALB that redirects HTTP traffic to HTTPS. This can be done by creating a rule with a condition that matches all HTTP traffic and a rule action that redirects the traffic to the HTTPS listener. The HTTPS listener should already be configured to accept HTTPS traffic and forward it to the target group. Question 20. A company has a production workload that runs on 1000 Amazon EC2 Linux instances. The workload is powered by third-party software. The company needs to patch the third-party software on all EC2 instances as quickly as possible to remediate a critical security vulnerability. What should a solution architect do to meet these requirements? Our options are A. Create an AWS Lambda function to apply the patch to all EC2 instances. B. Configure AWS Systems Manager Patch Manager to apply the patch to all EC2 instances. C. Schedule an AWS Systems Manager maintenance window to apply the patch to all EC2 instances. Or D. Use AWS Systems Manager run command to run a custom command that applies the patch to all EC2 instances. The correct option is D. Use AWS Systems Manager run command to run a custom command that applies the patch to all EC2 instances. AWS Systems Manager run command allows the company to run commands or scripts on multiple EC2 instances. By using run command, the company can quickly and easily apply the patch to all 1000 EC2 instances to remediate the security vulnerability. Creating an AWS Lambda function to apply the patch to all EC2 instances would not be a suitable solution, as Lambda functions are not designed to run on EC2 instances. Configuring AWS Systems Manager Patch Manager to apply the patch to all EC2 instances would not be a suitable solution, as Patch Manager is not designed to apply third-party software patches. Scheduling an AWS Systems Manager maintenance window to apply the patch to all EC2 instances would not be a suitable solution, as maintenance windows are not designed to apply patches to a third-party software. Question 21. A company has an on-premises application that generates a large amount of time-sensitive data that is backed up to Amazon S3. The application has grown and there are user complaints about internet bandwidth limitations. A solutions architect needs to design a long-term solution that allows for both timely backups to Amazon S3 and with minimal impact on internet connectivity for internal users. Which solution meets these requirements? The correct option is B. Establish a new AWS Direct Connect connection and direct backup traffic through this new connection. About the options: A. VPN also goes through the internet and uses the bandwidth. C. Daily snowball transfer is not a really long-term solution when it comes to cost and efficiency. About D. S3 limits don't change anything here. Therefore, the correct option is B. Question 22. A company's website uses an Amazon EC2 instance store for its catalog of items. The company wants to make sure that the catalog is highly available and that the catalog is stored in a durable location. What should a solution architect do to meet these requirements? Our options are: A. Move the catalog to Amazon Elasticache for Redis. B. Deploy a larger EC2 instance with a larger instance store. C. Move the catalog from the instance store to Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive. Or D. Move the catalog to an Amazon Elastic file system. The correct option among all these is D. Instance store is not durable. If it goes down, then instance store data is lost. EFS is the only option here that will provide high availability and durability, plus it can be accessed by multiple instances at the same time. Question 23. A company needs the ability to analyze the log files of its proprietary application. The logs are stored in JSON format in an Amazon S3 bucket. Queries will be simple and will run on demand. A solutions architect needs to perform the analysis with minimal changes to the existing architecture. What should the solution architect do to meet these requirements with the least amount of operational overhead? The correct option among all these is C. Amazon Athena is an interactive query service that makes it easy to analyze data directly in Amazon Simple Storage Service using standard SQL. With a few actions in the AWS Management Console, you can point Athena at your data stored in Amazon S3 and begin using standard SQL to run AD-HOC queries and get results in seconds. Question 24. An application runs on an Amazon EC2 instance in a VPC. The application processes logs that are stored in an Amazon S3 bucket. The EC2 instance needs to access the S3 bucket without connectivity to the internet. Which solution will provide private network connectivity to Amazon S3? Our options are: A. Create a gateway VPC endpoint to the S3 bucket. B. Stream the logs to Amazon CloudWatch logs. Export the logs to the S3 bucket. C. Create an instance profile on Amazon EC2 to allow S3 access. Or D. Create an Amazon API Gateway API with a private link to access the S3 endpoint. The correct option is A. Create a gateway VPC endpoint to the S3 bucket. VPC endpoint allows you to connect to AWS services using a private network instead of using the public internet. Question 25. A company is hosting a web application on AWS using a single Amazon EC2 instance that stores user uploaded documents in an Amazon EBS volume. For better scalability and availability, the company duplicated the architecture and created a second EC2 instance and EBS volume in another availability zone, placing both behind an application load balancer. After completing this change, users reported that each time they refreshed the website, they could see one subset of their documents or the other, but never all of the documents at the same time. What should a solution architect propose to ensure users see all of their documents at once? Our options are: A. Copy the data so both EBS volumes contain all the documents. B. Configure the application load balancer to direct a user to the server with the documents. C. Copy the data from both EBS volumes to Amazon EFS. Modify the application to save new documents to Amazon EFS. Or D. Configure the application load balancer to send the request to both servers. Return each document from the correct answer. The correct option is C. Concurrent or at the same time is the keyword for EFS. These are some of its functionality. Adaptive throughput. EFS's performance can scale in line with its storage, operating at a higher throughput for sudden, high-volume file dumps, reaching up to 500,000 IOPS or 10 GB per second. Totally elastic. Once you have spun up an EFS instance, you can add files without worrying about provisioning or disturbing your application's performance. Additional accessibility. EFS can be mounted from different EC2 instances, but it can also cross the AWS region boundary via the use of VPC peering. Question 26. A company runs an e-commerce application on Amazon EC2 instances behind an application load balancer. The instances run in an Amazon EC2 auto-scaling group across multiple availability zones. The auto-scaling group scales based on CPU utilization metrics. The e-commerce application stores the transaction data in a MySQL 8.0 database that is hosted on a large EC2 instance. The database's performance degrades quickly as application load increases. The application handles more read requests than write transactions. The company wants a solution that will automatically scale the database to meet the demand of unpredictable read workloads while maintaining high availability. Which solution will meet these requirements? Our options are A. Use Amazon Redshift with a single node for leader and compute functionality. B. Use Amazon RDS with a single AZ deployment. Configure Amazon RDS to add reader instances in a different availability zone. C. Use Amazon Aurora with a multi-AZ deployment. Configure Aurora auto-scaling with Aurora replicas. Or D. Use Amazon ElastiCache for memcached with EC2 spot instances. The correct option among all these is C. C. Aurora is 5 times performance improvement over MySQL on RDS and handles more read requests than write. Maintaining high availability equals multi-AZ deployment. Question 27. A company recently migrated to AWS and wants to implement a solution to protect the traffic that flows in and out of the production VPC. The company had an inspection server in its on-premises data center. The inspection server performed specific operations such as traffic flow inspection and traffic filtering. The company wants to have the same functionalities in the AWS cloud. Which solution will meet these requirements? Our options are A. Use Amazon Guard Duty for traffic inspection and traffic filtering in the production VPC. B. Use traffic mirroring to mirror traffic from the production VPC for traffic inspection and filtering. C. Use AWS Network Firewall to create the required rules for traffic inspection and traffic filtering for the production VPC. Or D. Use AWS Firewall Manager to create the required rules for traffic inspection and traffic filtering for the production VPC. The correct option among all these is C. AWS Network Firewall is a managed network firewall and intrusion detection and prevention service for your virtual private cloud that you created in Amazon Virtual Private Cloud. With Network Firewall, you can filter traffic at the perimeter of your VPC. This includes filtering traffic going to and coming from an internet gateway, NAT gateway, or over VPN or AWS Direct Connect. Question 28. A company is implementing a new business application. The application runs onto Amazon EC2 instances and uses an Amazon S3 bucket for document storage. A solution architect needs to ensure that the EC2 instances can access the S3 bucket. What should the solution architect do to meet these requirements? Our options are A. Create an IAM role that grants access to the S3 bucket. Attach the role to the EC2 instances. B. Create an IAM policy that grants access to the S3 bucket. Attach the policy to the EC2 instances. C. Create an IAM group that grants access to the S3 bucket. Attach the group to the EC2 instances. Or D. Create an IAM user that grants access to the S3 bucket. Attach the user account to the EC2 instances. The correct option here is A. Always remember that you should associate IAM roles to EC2 instances. Question 29. A solution architect is using Amazon S3 to design the storage architecture of a new Digital media application. The media files must be resilient to the loss of an availability zone. Some files are accessed frequently, while other files are rarely accessed in an unpredictable pattern. The solution architect must minimize the cost of storing and retrieving the media files. Which storage option meet these requirements? Our options are A. S3 standard, B. S3 intelligent tiering, C. S3 standard infrequent access, or D. S3 one zone infrequent access. Here, the correct option is B. S3 intelligent tiering. Here we are talking about an unpredictable pattern. As such, we will always go for intelligent tiering of S3. It also meets the resiliency requirement. S3 standard, S3 intelligent tiering, S3 standard IA, S3 glacier instant retrieval, S3 glacier flexible retrieval, and S3 glacier deep archive redundantly store objects on multiple devices across a minimum of 3 availability zones in an AWS region. Question 30. A company needs to review its AWS cloud deployment to ensure that its Amazon S3 buckets do not have unauthorized configuration changes. What should a solution architect do to accomplish this goal? Our options are A. Turn on AWS config with the appropriate rules. B. Turn on AWS Trusted Advisor with the appropriate checks. C. Turn on Amazon Inspector with the appropriate assessment template. Or D. Turn on Amazon S3 server access logging. Configure Amazon Event Bridge. The correct option among all these is A. Turn on AWS config with the appropriate rules. Trusted Advisor gives you general check of your system and identifies ways to optimize your infrastructure and improve it, while AWS config is more about specific resource. Like stated, config lets you select particular resource you want to evaluate. AWS Trusted Advisor is just to analyze your AWS accounts and provide us recommendation. Question 31. A company observes an increase in Amazon EC2 costs in its most recent bill. The billing team notices unwanted vertical scaling of instance types for a couple of EC2 instances. A solutions architect needs to create a graph comparing the last 2 months of EC2 cost and perform an in-depth analysis to identify the root cause of the vertical scaling. How should the solution architect generate the information with the least operational overhead? The correct option is B. Use Cost Explorer's granular filtering feature to perform an in-depth analysis of EC2 costs based on instance types. AWS Cost Explorer is a tool that enables you to view and analyze your costs and usage. You can explore your usage and costs using the main graph, the Cost Explorer cost and usage reports, or the Cost Explorer RI reports. You can view data for up to the last 12 months, forecast how much you're likely to spend for the next 12 months, and get recommendations for what reserved instances to purchase. You can use Cost Explorer to identify areas that need further inquiry and see trends that you can use to understand your costs. Question 32. A company hosts its multi-tier application on AWS for compliance, governance, and auditing and security. The company must track configuration changes on its AWS resources and record a history of API calls made to these resources. What should a solution architect do to meet these requirements? Our options are A. Use AWS CloudTrail to track configuration changes and AWS config to record API calls. B. Use AWS config to track configuration changes and AWS CloudTrail to record API calls. C. Use AWS config to track configuration changes and Amazon CloudWatch to record API calls. Or D. Use AWS CloudTrail to track configuration changes and Amazon CloudWatch to record API calls. The correct answer is B. Use AWS config to track configuration changes and AWS CloudTrail to record API calls. CloudTrail is used to track user activity and API call history. Config assesses, audits, and evaluates the configuration and relationship of tag resources. Therefore, the correct answer is B. Question 33. A development team needs to host a website that will be accessed by other teams. The website contents consist of HTML, CSS, client-side JavaScript, and images. Which method is the most cost-effective for hosting the website? Our options are A. Containerize the website and host it in AWS Fargate. B. Create an Amazon S3 bucket and host the website there. C. Deploy a web server on an Amazon EC2 instance to host the website. Or D. Configure an application load balancer with an AWS Lambda target that uses the express.js framework. The correct answer is B. Create an Amazon S3 bucket and host the website there. We use client-side JavaScript. The website is static, so it must be S3. Question 34. A company is hosting a static website on Amazon S3 and is using Amazon Route 53 for DNS. The website is experiencing increased demand from around the world. The company must decrease latency for users who access the website. Which solution meets these requirements most cost effectively? The correct option is C. Add an Amazon CloudFront distribution in front of the S3 bucket. Edit the Route 53 entries to point to the CloudFront distribution. Question 35. A company is preparing to launch a public-facing web application in the AWS cloud. The architecture consists of Amazon EC2 instances within a VPC behind an elastic load balancer. A third-party service is used for the DNS. The company solution architect must recommend a solution to detect and protect against large-scale DDoS attacks. Which solution meets the requirements? Our options are A. Enable Amazon Guard Duty on the account. B. Enable Amazon Inspector on the EC2 instances. C. Enable AWS Shield and assign Amazon Route 53 to it. Or D. Enable AWS Shield Advanced and assign the ELB to it. The correct answer is D. Enable AWS Shield Advanced and assign the ELB to it. AWS Shield Advanced provides expanded DDoS attack protection for your Amazon EC2 instances, elastic load balancing load balancers, CloudFront distributors, Route 53 hosted zones, and AWS Global Accelerator standard accelerators. Question 36. A company maintains a searchable repository of items on its website. The data is stored in an Amazon RDS for MySQL database table that contains more than 10 million rows. The database has 2 TB of general purpose SSD storage. There are millions of updates against this data every day through the company's website. The company has noticed that some insert operations are taking 10 seconds or longer. The company has determined that the database storage performance is the problem. Which solution addresses the performance issue? Our options are A. Change the storage type to provisioned IOPS SSD. B. Change the DB instance to a memory optimized instance class. C. Change the DB instance to a burstable performance instance class. Or D. Enable multi-AZ RDS read replicas with MySQL native asynchronous application. The correct answer is A. Change the storage type to provisioned IOPS SSD. Provisioned IOPS storage is designed to meet the needs of IO-intensive workloads, particularly database workloads that require low input-output latency and consistent input-output throughput. Question 37. A company runs a highly available image processing application on Amazon EC2 instances in a single VPC. The EC2 instances run inside several subnets across multiple availability zones. The EC2 instances do not communicate with each other. However, the EC2 instances download images from Amazon S3 and upload images to Amazon S3 through a single NAT gateway. The company is concerned about data transfer charges. What is the most cost-effective way for the company to avoid regional data transfer charges? Our options are A. Launch the NAT gateway in each availability zone. B. Replace the NAT gateway with a NAT instance. C. Deploy a gateway VPC endpoint for Amazon S3. Or D. Provision an EC2 dedicated host to run the EC2 instances. The correct option is C. Deploy a gateway VPC endpoint for Amazon S3. Deploying a gateway VPC endpoint for Amazon S3 is the most cost-effective way for the company to avoid regional data transfer charges. A gateway VPC endpoint is a network gateway that allows communication between instances in a VPC and a service, such as Amazon S3, without requiring an internet gateway or a NAT device. Data transfer between the VPC and the service through a NAT gateway VPC endpoint is free of charge, while data transfer between the VPC and the internet through an internet gateway or NAT device is subject to data transfer charges. By using a gateway VPC endpoint, the company can reduce its data transfer cost by eliminating the need to transfer data through the NAT gateway to access Amazon S3. This option would provide the required connectivity to Amazon S3 and minimize data transfer charges. Question 38. A company needs to store its accounting records in Amazon S3. The records must be immediately accessible for 1 year and then must be archived for an additional 9 years. No one at the company, including administrative users and root users, can be able to delete the records during the entire 10-year period. The records must be stored with maximum resiliency. Which solution will meet these requirements? The correct option is C. Use an S3 lifecycle policy to transition the records from S3 standard to S3 Glacier Deep Archive after 1 year. Use S3 object lock in compliance mode for a period of 10 years. Question 39. A solution architect is developing a VPC architecture that includes multiple subnets. The architecture will host applications that use Amazon EC2 instances and Amazon RDS DB instances. The architecture consists of 6 subnets in 2 availability zones. Each availability zone includes a public subnet, a private subnet, and a dedicated subnet for databases. Only EC2 instances that run in the private subnets can have access to the RDS databases. Which solution will meet these requirements? The correct option is C. Create a security group that allows inbound traffic from the security group that is assigned to instances in the private subnets. Attach the security group to the DB instances. Inside a VPC, traffic locally between different subnets cannot be restricted by routing, but in case they are in different VPCs, then it would be possible. This is important gain in VPC. So only method is security groups. Like EC2, RDS also has security groups to restrict traffic to database instances. About the options, A does not fully configure the traffic flow. In B, security groups don't have deny rules. About D, peering is mostly between VPCs. Doesn't really help here. As such, C is the correct answer. Question 40. A company wants to run its critical applications in containers to meet requirements for scalability and availability. The company prefers to focus on maintenance of the critical applications. The company does not want to be responsible for provisioning and managing the underlying infrastructure that runs the containerized workload. What should a solution architect do to meet these requirements? Our options are A. Use Amazon EC2 instances and install Docker on the instances. B. Use Amazon Elastic Container Service on Amazon EC2 worker nodes. C. Use Amazon Elastic Container Service on AWS Fargate. Or D. Use Amazon EC2 instances from an Amazon Elastic Container Service optimized Amazon machine image. The correct answer is C. Use Amazon Elastic Container Service on AWS Fargate. AWS Fargate is a serverless, pay-as-you-go compute engine that lets you focus on building applications without having to manage servers. AWS Fargate is compatible with Amazon Elastic Container Services and Amazon Elastic Kubernetes Service.